Captain Rixa stood in the center of the vast lecture hall, his yellow, reptilian eyes scanning the room full of young Trellick cadets. The hatchlings chattered among themselves, their blue and green scales gleaming under the artificial lights of the ship's training center. To them, this was just another class, another set of lessons about a galaxy they were only beginning to understand. But to Rixa, this was his favorite part of the day, teaching about the mysteries of the past, stories that most dismissed as myths. "Quiet down, hatchlings," Rixa commanded, his voice firm yet gentle. The room fell silent as the cadets turned their attention to him. "Today, we will discuss the subject of galactic legends, stories that have shaped the way many civilizations see the universe." One cadet, a particularly curious one named Tilka, raised her claw. "Honored Captain, why do we study these legends? Are they not just tales to entertain the young?" Rixa smiled slightly. "That's a good question, Tilka. But legends often contain more truth than we realize. Sometimes, the past isn't as distant as it seems. Today, we'll talk about one of the most enduring myths, the legend of humanity." At the mention of the word humanity, a wave of disbelief and mild amusement rippled through the classroom. The cadets exchanged glances, some rolling their eyes, while others whispered excitedly. Humans were a subject of wild speculation. Some believed they were real. Others thought they were nothing more than a fabricated story passed down through the ages. "Humans are real?" another cadet, Jekko, asked skeptically. His green scales shimmered as he leaned forward, clearly not convinced. Rix's expression hardened slightly. "Most believe they were real once, but now they are considered extinct. However, there was a time when their presence in the galaxy was undeniable. Some even say they were one of the most formidable species to ever exist. They had an unmatched ingenuity and a resilience that defied all odds." The room grew quieter, the skepticism fading as the cadets began to sense a seriousness in their instructor's tone. Rixa moved to a large holographic display at the front of the hall, activating it with a swipe of his hand. A planet appeared, blue and green with vast oceans and swirling clouds. "This is Earth, the legendary homeworld of humanity." "Earth?" Tilka repeated in awe. "It's beautiful." "It was," Rixa replied, his voice softening. "But humanity's rise and fall are shrouded in mystery. According to ancient records, they were pioneers of technology and exploration. They reached out to the stars before most of us even dreamed of leaving our own planets. But then something happened. Their civilization was wiped out almost overnight, leaving behind only ruins and rumors." Another cadet, Culva, leaned forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. "What destroyed them, Captain? Was it war, disease?" Rixa sighed, his two hearts heavy with the weight of the tale he was about to tell. "No one knows for certain. Some say it was an invasion by a powerful alien race. Others claim they were victims of their own hubris, pushing their technology too far. What we do know is that, after their disappearance, much of their knowledge and technology vanished with them." The hologram shifted to show remnants of colossal structures, deep space stations floating in the void, and strange, encrypted data streams. These are the few traces of humanity that remain, ruins scattered across the galaxy, along with artifacts too advanced for most species to understand. Tilka's hand shot up again. If they were so advanced, why didn't they survive? Rixa paused, considering how to answer. Perhaps their enemies were stronger, or perhaps they simply couldn't predict their own downfall. But what makes their story truly haunting is not just their disappearance. It's the fact that many races, including the Trellick, once had alliances with them. We traded with them, learned from them, and then one day they were gone. The room was silent now, the cadets hanging on Rixa's every word. He could see the fascination in their eyes, the spark of curiosity that he hoped to ignite. He had been like them once, questioning everything, searching for truth in the midst of galactic myths. But unlike his students, he had seen something that had changed him forever. "Honored Captain," Jekko spoke up again, his voice quieter now. Do you believe humans still exist? Rix's eyes darkened for a moment, memories flooding back. I've seen things that make me believe humanity may not be as extinct as we think. But whether they are truly gone or still hiding in the shadows of the galaxy, I cannot say for sure. Before the cadets could press in further, a loud chime echoed through the hall, followed by a voice over the intercom. Captain Rixo, report to the bridge immediately. Priority 1 alert. Rixo straightened, his face unreadable. Class dismissed, he said, his voice firm once again. We will continue this discussion another time. As the cadets filed out, murmuring to one another about what they had just heard, Rixo hurried toward the door, his mind racing. The priority alert could only mean one thing: trouble. And if his suspicions were correct, it had something to do with the very topic he had just been discussing. When he arrived on the bridge, the crew was already in a state of controlled chaos. The ship's captain, a stern and no-nonsense Trellick named Commander Warner, turned to Rixo as soon as he entered. Captain, we've picked up a signal from an uncharted system, Warner said, her voice tight with urgency. It's faint, but the signature matches, well, something we've never seen before. Rix's eyes narrowed. What kind of signal? Warner pulled up a display showing a series of complex patterns and encrypted bursts of data. It's ancient, thousands of cycles old, but highly advanced. We're detecting traces of technology that doesn't match any known species in our database. Rix's heart skipped a beat. Could it be human? Warner's expression mirrored his own uncertainty. We don't know, but we've been ordered to investigate. You'll be leading the expedition. Rixo nodded, a surge of both excitement and fear coursing through him. The myths he had taught his cadets about humanity were just that, myths. But now, the possibility of uncovering the truth loomed large. If this signal truly was from humans, it could change everything. Prepare the team, Rixo said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. We're going to find out if humans are truly a myth, or if they're still out there, waiting for us to discover them. As he left the bridge to prepare for the mission, Rixo couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something much larger than any of them could imagine. The legend of humanity was about to become very real, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The journey to the uncharted system was longer than Rixo had anticipated. As his exploration ship, the Horizon's Edge, cut through the vastness of space, his mind wandered back to the stories he had just shared with his cadets. The signal they were heading toward bore the unmistakable markings of ancient human technology that hadn't been seen in thousands of cycles. If the myths were true, this could be the greatest discovery of his life. Approaching the outer edge of the system, Captain called out First Officer Kell, a sharp-witted Trellick with a deep scar across his left cheek. He'd earned that scar in a skirmish with the Korgans, a nomadic warrior race years ago, and he wore it like a badge of honor. Good, Rixo replied, his voice steady despite the tension building within him. Take us in slowly. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. The main viewport of the ship displayed the eerie sight of the system's central planet, a partially destroyed world with jagged landmasses and atmospheric storms swirling across its surface. Chunks of rock and debris orbited the planet, a clear sign of catastrophic destruction. Rixo had seen war-torn worlds before, but something about this one felt different. It wasn't just a planet ravaged by time. It was as if it had been abandoned by life itself. Scanners are picking up several large structures on the planet's surface, sir, Kell reported. There's a concentration of energy readings near one of the larger ruins. It matches the signal we've been tracking. Rixo nodded, leaning closer to the display. Prepare a landing team. I want to see this up close. Within minutes, the shuttle bay was a hive of activity. Rix's team, a mix of Trellick soldiers and scientists, suited up for the mission. The shuttle they would take to the surface was equipped with state-of-the-art scanning technology and weapons, just in case things didn't go according to plan. But despite the precaution, Rixo couldn't shake the feeling of excitement. After all these years of teaching myths and legends, he was about to uncover the truth. As they descended through the planet's turbulent atmosphere, the shuttle was rocked by strong winds and electromagnetic pulses. The planet's storms were unlike anything they had encountered before, but the shuttle's advanced shielding held firm. "Landing zone in sight," the pilot called out. "Brace yourselves for a rough landing." The shuttle touched down with a hard thud, sending a jolt through the crew. The landing zone was a barren stretch of cracked earth, with massive ruins looming in the distance. Rixa stepped out first, his boots sinking slightly into the dust-covered ground. He gazed up at the towering structure ahead, a crumbling cityscape that must have been magnificent once, now reduced to rubble and decay. "This place is ancient," whispered Jara, one of the lead scientists, her voice full of awe as she surveyed the ruins. "These structures must be thousands of cycles old. I've never seen architecture like this." Rixa nodded but remained silent, his eyes scanning the horizon. There was an unnatural stillness to the place, a haunting quiet that unsettled him. No sounds of life, no whispers of wind, just the oppressive silence of the dead world. "We're close to the signal," Cal said, consulting his handheld scanner. "It's coming from that large structure ahead." The team moved cautiously through the ruins, their senses on high alert. The city's vast, broken towers cast long shadows across the barren ground, creating an eerie landscape of jagged shapes and darkness. As they approached the source of the signal, the structure ahead revealed itself to be a massive building, partially collapsed but still standing. Its walls were covered in strange glice, faintly glowing in the dim light. "This is it," Kel confirmed, his scanner beeping rapidly. "The signal is coming from inside." Rixa's pulse quickened. "Let's move in. Stay sharp." The entrance to the building was a jagged hole in the wall, likely the result of an explosion or collapse. The team filed in cautiously, their weapons drawn. Inside, the air was heavy, stale, as if it hadn't been disturbed in millennia. The walls were lined with more glowing symbols, and the deeper they went, the more Rixa felt like they were walking into something not meant to be found. "These symbols," Jara murmured, running her claw along the wall. "I can't read them, but they resemble something I've seen in old human records. This could be an ancient human language." They entered a vast chamber, its ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. In the center of the room stood a massive device. Unlike anything they had ever seen before, it hummed faintly with energy, its surface pulsing with faint light. "This must be the source of the signal," Cal said, moving toward it. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling as a low rumble echoed through the chamber. "What was that?" one of the soldiers asked, his voice tense. Before anyone could respond, the chamber was bathed in a harsh, blue light. The device in the center of the room rolled to life, and the walls began to glow brighter, the ancient glyphs lighting up in rapid succession. Rix's heart pounded in his chest as he instinctively reached for his weapon. "We've triggered something," Dara said, her voice rising in alarm. "We need to get out of here." Before she could finish, a deafening crash echoed from the entrance. A large chunk of the ceiling collapsed, sealing them inside. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps, accompanied by a strange metallic clanking. Rixa and his team spun around to see figures emerging from the shadows, tall, humanoid shapes, their bodies encased in metal armor that gleamed in the blue light. "Automatons," Cal shouted, raising his weapon. The mechanical figures advanced, their red eyes glowing ominously. Without hesitation, they opened fire. Blue bolts of energy shot across the chamber, forcing Rixa and his team to dive for cover behind the ruins. "Return fire," Rixa barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. The team unleashed a volley of laser fire, but the automatons were heavily armored, their movements precise and coordinated. As Rixa fired his rifle, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. These weren't just random machines, they were protectors, guardians of something far more important than a mere signal. "We need to shut that device down," Jara shouted over the din of battle, pointing to the humming machine at the center of the room. "It's controlling them. Cover me," Rixa ordered, dashing from his cover toward the device. He dodged incoming fire, feeling the heat of energy bolts whizzing past him. When he reached the machine, he quickly scanned its surface, searching for a control panel or anything that resembled a shutdown mechanism. Just as he found what looked like a control interface, one of the automatons lunged at him. Rixa spun around, narrowly avoiding its blade as it swiped at him. He drew his sidearm and fired point-blank into the automaton's chest, the blast knocking it back. With the automaton momentarily disabled, Rixa turned back to the device. His claws danced across the interface, pressing symbols and switches in a desperate attempt to deactivate it. The machine groaned, its hum growing louder, but nothing happened. "Rixa, hurry!" Cal shouted from across the room, his voice strained as he fended off another automaton. Finally, with a frustrated growl, Rixa slammed his fist against the control panel. The machine shuddered, and then, with a deafening hiss, it powered down. The chamber fell silent as the automatons froze in place, their red eyes dimming. Rixa let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "Everyone all right?" he called out. The team slowly emerged from their cover, shaken but alive. The automatons stood motionless, their weapons still raised, but no longer a threat. "What was that?" Jara asked, her voice filled with awe as she approached the now dormant machine. "That technology, it's far beyond anything we've seen before." Rixa wiped the sweat from his brow, his mind racing. "I don't know, but one thing is clear." He turned to face the team, his eyes burning with determination. Humans were here, and whatever they left behind is still dangerous. The oppressive silence inside the ancient chamber weighed heavily on Rixa and his team. The deactivated automatons stood frozen, their gleaming metal shells casting eerie reflections in the dim, pulsing light from the dormant machine. Even though the immediate threat had passed, an unsettling tension lingered in the air, as if the planet itself resented their intrusion. Jara crouched near one of the automatons, her eyes wide with curiosity. "I've never seen anything like this before," she whispered, running her clawed fingers across the machine's surface. "The craftsmanship, it's incredible. These aren't just mindless drones, they were built with a purpose." Rixa nodded, his gaze sweeping over the chamber. Whatever that purpose was, it was meant to protect something important, and I think it's safe to say that whatever happened to this planet, the humans have a hand in it. Kel, still scanning the area with his handheld device, frowned. "I'm picking up faint energy readings deeper underground. It's possible there's another structure beneath us." Rixa's instincts flared. This discovery was becoming more dangerous by the minute, but the promise of answers was too tantalizing to ignore. If they were truly standing on the remnants of a human stronghold, then there had to be more to uncover. Something here held the key to humanity's mysterious disappearance, and potentially to the survival of the galaxy itself. "We're not leaving until we find out what's down there," Rixa said firmly. "Jara, see if you can find a way to access the lower levels." Jara's fingers flew over the ancient console embedded in the wall near the dormant machine. Her brow furrowed as she worked to bypass the complex encryption locks. "This system is old, but it's not broken. Someone left it intact for a reason. I'll need a few minutes." As Jara worked, Rixa couldn't shake the eerie feeling that they were being watched. The chamber, though quiet now, seemed alive with the echoes of the past. The technology surrounding them wasn't just ancient, it was advanced in ways that were almost incomprehensible to the Trellick. If this was what humanity had left behind, then they had been far more powerful than the myths suggested. "Sir," Kel said, breaking the silence, "do you really think humans are still out there? Or is this just a relic of the past?" Rixa hesitated. He had spent his entire career teaching young cadets about the legends of humanity, and now standing in the midst of their lost world, he felt conflicted. "I don't know, Kel," he admitted, "but if they are still out there, they've either been hiding for a very long time or they're waiting for the right moment to return." Just then, A low rumble echoed through the chamber, followed by a series of metallic clicks. Jara straightened, her eyes wide with surprise. "I've got it," she exclaimed. "There's an elevator mechanism beneath us. It should take us deeper into the facility." "Good work," Rixa said, signaling for the team to gather. "Everyone be on alert. Whatever we find down there, we need to be prepared for anything." The floor beneath them shifted, and with a loud hiss, a circular section of the ground began to descend. The team gathered on the platform as it lowered into the darkness, the light from their suits casting long shadows against the ancient stone walls. As they descended, the atmosphere grew colder, the air thick with the weight of forgotten history. After what felt like an eternity, the platform came to a stop. They had arrived in a massive underground chamber, far larger than the one above. Rows of dimly lit consoles lined the walls, each covered in the same glowing glyphs as before. In the center of the room stood a towering structure, a massive pillar of glass and metal that pulsed with a soft blue light. "What is this place?" Kel murmured, his voice filled with awe. "It looks like a command center," Jara replied, her eyes scanning the consoles. "This could be where they controlled the automatons, but why bury it so deep underground?" Rixa approached the central pillar, his heart pounding. There was something familiar about the structure, though he couldn't place why. It hummed with an energy that seemed almost alive, as if the entire room were waiting for someone to give it a command. "Can you access it?" Rixa asked, turning to Jara. "I'll try," she said, already moving toward one of the consoles. Her fingers danced over the controls, and after a few moments, the pillar began to glow brighter. A series of holographic images flickered to life above it, displaying strange symbols and data streams that none of them could understand. But then, amidst the unfamiliar glyphs, something appeared that made Rixa's blood run cold. A human face. The holographic image was faint, distorted by time and damage, but there was no mistaking it. The figure was a human male, his features sharp and commanding. His eyes burned with intensity, and though his expression was calm, there was a sense of urgency in his gaze. "This is Commander Nirin of the United Earth Defense Fleet," the figure began, his voice crackling with static. "If you are receiving this message, then it means we failed. The Nexus has taken control of the outer colonies, and we are no longer able to contain them." "Nexus," Rixa whispered, the name unfamiliar to him. The hologram continued, unaware of its audience. "We have initiated the fallback protocol. All remaining human forces have been evacuated to the edge of the galaxy. We cannot afford to lose any more ground. If the Nexus reaches Earth, there will be nothing left." The team stood in stunned silence as the message played out. Rixa's mind raced. Nexus? Fallback protocol. What had the humans been fighting? And how had they lost? "We underestimated them," Commander Nirin's hologram said, his voice full of regret. "We thought we could outlast them. We were wrong. They are stronger than we imagined, and they do not stop. They do not bargain. They only destroy." The hologram flickered, the image growing weaker. "If you are seeing this, then you are the last hope for this galaxy. Find the others. Warn them. The Nexus will return." The message cut out, leaving the chamber in silence once again. The holographic figure faded, and the blue light from the pillar dimmed. "Warn them," Cal said, his voice shaking slightly. "Warn who? The humans are gone. The Nexus must have wiped them out." "Maybe not all of them," Jara said quietly, her eyes still fixed on the spot where the hologram had been. "The commander said they initiated a fallback protocol. That means some of them might have survived, somewhere." Rixa clenched his fists, his mind reeling from the implications of what they had just witnessed. The humans hadn't been wiped out by a natural disaster or internal conflict. They had been fighting something, a powerful enemy called the Nexus, and it seemed that war had been their undoing. "We need to get this information back to the fleet," Rixa said, his voice tense. "If the Nexus is still out there, then the entire galaxy could be in danger. And if the humans were right, they might be coming back. Before they could move, the chamber trembled again. This time, it wasn't the machine. The ground beneath them shook violently, and the sound of grinding metal filled the air. "They're here," one of the soldiers shouted, pointing toward the far end of the chamber. Rixa turned to see more automatons emerging from the shadows, their eyes glowing red once again. But this time, they weren't alone. Behind them, something far larger and more menacing moved into view. A towering insectoid creature encased in dark armor, its multi-limbed body bristling with weaponry. "That's not a machine," Jara whispered, her voice trembling. "That's something else." Rix's eyes narrowed. "It's a Nexus drone. They must have found this place." "Captain, we can't fight that thing," Kel shouted, raising his weapon. Rix's mind raced as the creature advanced, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and trapped deep underground. But if they could make it back to the surface, they could warn the others, and maybe, just maybe, they could stop the Nexus from finishing what they started. "We don't have a choice," Rixa said, his voice steely. "Fall back to the elevator, now." The team scrambled toward the exit, their weapons firing at the advancing automatons. Rixa glanced back at the creature, its many eyes glowing with a cold, calculating malice. The Nexus had returned, and now the fight that had wiped out humanity was about to begin again. Rixa sprinted toward the elevator with the rest of his team, the sounds of energy blasts and clanking machinery echoing through the vast underground chamber. The towering Nexus drone moved with terrifying speed for something its size, and the automatons flanked it, their red eyes glowing as they advanced. "Keep moving," Rixa shouted, firing a volley of shots from his rifle at the nearest automaton. The blast hit the machine square in the chest, but it barely slowed. These things were built to withstand punishment, and even with their weapons, the Trellick team was struggling to hold them off. Jara, her breathing ragged, was fumbling with the controls of the elevator. "I'm trying to reactivate it," she called, her voice edged with panic. "The system's locked. They must have disabled it from the central command." "Then unlock it," Cal shouted, covering her as he fired at the approaching enemy. His blasts knocked one of the automatons back, but more were coming, and the monstrous Nexus drone loomed closer. Rixa fired another burst, hitting one of the automaton's joints, which caused it to stagger. "We don't have much time," he yelled. "Jara, hurry." Jara's fingers flew across the console, sweat dripping down her brow as she bypassed security systems, overriding the lockdowns. "Almost there. Just give me a few more seconds." But seconds were a luxury they didn't have. The Nexus drone unleashed a guttural, metallic roar as it raised one of its massive limbs, aiming directly at the group. With a loud mechanical hiss, it fired an energy blast from its forearm, narrowly missing Rixa as he dove behind a fallen piece of debris. The impact shook the entire chamber, sending cracks up the walls and dislodging chunks of rock. Rixa glanced at the massive creature, his heart racing. The Nexus drone was unlike anything he had ever seen, a perfect blend of organic and machine, an apex predator designed for one purpose: destruction. Whatever this creature was, it had hunted humanity into extinction, and now it was hunting them. "We're not going to make it if that thing gets any closer," Kel shouted, his voice strained as he unleashed more shots. "Got it," Jara screamed triumphantly as the elevator door lit up with a soft hum. "We're back online. Everyone inside." Without a second thought, the team rushed into the elevator as the massive metal doors slid open. Jara pounded the panel, and the elevator doors began to close just as the Nexus drone reached them. Its powerful limbs lashed out, but it was too late. The doors slammed shut, and the elevator shot upward, leaving the monsters below. For a moment, the team stood in stunned silence, the only sound the heavy breathing of relief as the tension began to ease. They had escaped, but just barely. Rixa leaned back against the wall of the elevator, his mind still reeling from what they had just encountered. The message from the human commander, the Nexus drone, the automatons, all of it confirmed that the legends were more than just stories. Humanity had fought a devastating war against an unstoppable enemy, and they had lost. But why had no one known about this? Why had this part of history been buried, turned into myth? What in the stars was that thing? Jara asked, still catching her breath. That wasn't just a machine, it was alive. Rixa closed his eyes, trying to piece it together. It was a Nexus drone. If the humans' message was true, these things wiped out their colonies. The Nexus must have left these drones behind to guard this planet, probably to keep anyone from discovering what happened here. Kel, his usual bravado shaken, frowned. But why are they still here? The humans are gone. What's the point of guarding ruins? Maybe they're not guarding the ruins, Rixa said quietly. Maybe they're guarding the truth. If other civilizations learned about the Nexus, they'd prepare. They'd fight back. But if no one knows the danger, then the Nexus can strike when they're ready. The elevator slowed as it neared the surface, the light from the ruined city filtering through the cracks in the doors. Rix's thoughts were racing. If the Nexus was preparing to return, then the galaxy was in grave danger. And if humanity hadn't been able to stop them, what hope did the Trellick, or any other race, have? The doors slid open, revealing the desolate ruins once again. The surface was just as quiet as before, but now that silence felt more menacing. Rixa stepped out, his senses on high alert. They had escaped the drones. But for how long? The Nexus had found them once. They would find them again. We need to get this information to the fleet, Rixa said, his voice resolute. They need to know what's coming. As the team hurried back toward the shuttle, Jara paused, glancing over her shoulder at the crumbling ruins behind them. Do you think any humans survived? She asked softly. Rixa's gaze followed hers, settling on the distant, shattered buildings. I don't know, he admitted, but if they did, they're probably still hiding. And after seeing what the Nexus did to their worlds, I can't blame them. Kel grunted, hefting his weapon. If any humans are still out there, they'd better come out of hiding soon. We're going to need all the help we can get if we're going to survive this. The team reached the shuttle and quickly boarded, sealing the hatch as the engines roared to life. As they ascended through the stormy atmosphere, Rixa couldn't shake the weight of responsibility that now hung over them. The Nexus was real, the threat was real, and now it was up to them to warn the galaxy. But as they broke through the planet's upper atmosphere and the stars stretched out before them, Rixa felt a new sense of purpose. The humans had fought valiantly, and though they had fallen, their legacy wasn't entirely lost. Their technology, their warnings, their resilience, they had left something behind. And now, it was up to Rixa and his people to make sure the same fate didn't befall the rest of the galaxy. Set course for the fleet, Rixa ordered. We have to tell them what we found. The shuttle streaked through space, leaving the cursed planet behind. But Rixa knew this was only the beginning. The Nexus wouldn't stop. They would come for them, just as they had come for the humans. And when they did, the Trellick, and every other race in the galaxy, would have to be ready. We'll find them, Rixa said quietly, his eyes fixed on the stars. The Nexus. And when we do, we'll make sure they never get another chance to destroy anyone ever again. As the shuttle jumped to hyperspace, a sense of calm washed over him. The humans may have fallen, but their fight wasn't over. It was now up to the living to carry that torch and ensure that the shadows of the past never consumed the future. The journey back to the fleet was tense. Rixa sat in the shuttle's cockpit, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space as stars streaked past them. The weight of what they had discovered pressed heavily on his shoulders. The legends of humanity had always seemed distant and vague, stories to entertain or caution young hatchlings. But now, with the revelation of the Nexus and the remnants of human technology, those stories had transformed into a stark and terrifying reality. Behind him, Jara and Kel worked silently, reviewing the data they had collected from the underground facility. The hologram of Commander Nirin played over and over, his message a chilling reminder of the fate that had befallen humanity. The Nexus has taken control of the outer colonies. If they reach Earth, there will be nothing left. Rixa's claws tightened around the armrests of his seat. Nothing left. The thought haunted him. The Nexus had wiped out humanity, a race once believed to be among the most resilient and innovative in the galaxy. If they couldn't survive, what chance did the Trellick have? What chance did any race have? "We're approaching the fleet," Kel announced, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but Rixa could hear the underlying tension. The entire team felt it, the gravity of what they were about to report. "Good," Rixa replied, pulling himself from his thoughts. "Let's hope they're ready to listen." The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace, and the Trellick fleet came into view, a massive array of ships ranging from small, agile fighters to enormous capital vessels. At the heart of the fleet was the Sovereign, the command ship, a sprawling behemoth of metal and firepower. It was there that Rixa would need to make his case. As they neared the docking bay, the comm system crackled to life. "Shuttle 892, you are cleared for landing. Welcome back, Captain Rixa." "Copy that," Kel responded, guiding the shuttle into the bay. The craft touched down with a soft thud, and the team quickly disembarked, the metallic clang of their boots echoing in the massive hangar. "Stay sharp," Rixa muttered as they moved toward the debriefing room. "This isn't going to be an easy conversation." The corridor leading to the command center was lined with soldiers, engineers, and other crew members going about their duties. But as Rixa and his team passed, a few of them cast curious glances. Word had spread quickly that something significant had been discovered on the uncharted planet. There were whispers, quiet speculations about what might be coming. They reached the command center, where Admiral Velrax, the fleet's commanding officer, was waiting. A tall, imposing figure with silver scales and piercing yellow eyes, Velrax was known for her no-nonsense leadership style and her absolute dedication to the Trellick military. She stood with her arms crossed, flanked by several high-ranking officers, all of them watching Rixa and his team intently. "Captain Rixa," Velrax said, her voice cold and authoritative. "I trust your mission yielded results." Rixa nodded, stepping forward. "It did, Admiral. But the situation is far more serious than we anticipated. We found an ancient human facility, intact, along with remnants of human technology. And we encountered something else." "Go on," Velrax said, her eyes narrowing. "The humans were fighting something called the Nexus," Rixa continued, "an enemy that nearly wiped them out. We discovered a message left by the last human commander on the planet. They were losing the war. They initiated a fallback protocol, but they didn't make it. We encountered Nexus drones guarding the facility, machines and creatures built for war." At the mention of the Nexus, a murmur swept through the room. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, and Velrax's expression darkened. "Drones?" one of the officers asked. "Are you certain they were Nexus? That could be a leap based on fragmented information." Rixa's jaw tightened. "I know what we saw. These things were engineered to kill, and they've been lying in wait for centuries, guarding what was left behind. If we hadn't shut down the facility's systems, we wouldn't be standing here right now." Velrax's gaze remained locked on Rixa. "And what do you propose we do with this information, Captain? You've uncovered evidence of a long-dead enemy, but we are dealing with the present. The Trellick have other concerns, territories to defend, allies to maintain." Rixa stepped closer, his eyes blazing with determination. "Admiral, if the Nexus destroyed humanity, what's to stop them from coming for us? If they're still out there, and I believe they are, then they're preparing for another war. We need to be ready. The Trellick can't face this alone. We need to find other races willing to fight." Velrax's expression softened, but only slightly. She glanced at the other officers, then back at Rixa. You're asking me to mobilize our fleet against an enemy that, by all accounts, hasn't been seen in centuries. To form an alliance based on the words of a long-dead human commander. I'm asking you to save the galaxy, Rixa said, his voice low but fierce. We have a chance to stop this before it happens. But if we wait, if we do nothing, the Nexus will return. And when they do, it won't just be the humans who fall. For a moment, the room was silent, the weight of Rixa's words hanging in the air. Verax remained still, her eyes locked on Rixa as if weighing his conviction. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she exhaled and nodded. Very well, she said. We will investigate further. But I want proof, something concrete, that we can present to our allies. We can't afford to move on this based on speculation alone. Rixa nodded, relief washing over him. We'll get it. We'll return to the planet, recover more data, and see if there's any trace of human survivors. If the Nexus is still a threat, we'll need to find anyone who remembers how to fight them. Verax's gaze hardened once more. You have my permission to proceed, Captain, but be warned, if you're wrong, it won't just be your career at risk. You'll have put this entire fleet on high alert for nothing. Rixa met her gaze without flinching. Understood, Admiral. As Verax dismissed the meeting, Rixa turned to Kel and Jara, who were waiting by the door. We're not done yet, he said quietly. We need to go back. There's more down there that we haven't uncovered. You really think the humans might still be out there? Kel asked, his skepticism still evident, though tempered by the weight of the situation. If they are, Rixa replied, they're our best hope. They fought the Nexus once. They might know how to do it again. Jara, who had been reviewing the data on her handheld device, looked up. The facility we found was just one part of a larger network. There are more outposts scattered across the galaxy, places the humans use to defend themselves. If we can find them, we might be able to piece together what really happened. Rixa nodded. Then that's our next step. We gather more intel, find the rest of the human outposts, and see if there's anything left of their defenses. If the Nexus is still out there, we'll need every advantage we can get. As they made their way back to the shuttle, Rixa couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The Nexus had been silent for centuries, but something told him that silence was about to end. The storm was coming, and if they didn't act quickly, the galaxy would be caught in its wake. As the shuttle lifted off, Rixa's eyes were fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, the remnants of humanity still lingered, and with them, the answers they so desperately needed. Let's hope we're not too late, Rixa muttered under his breath as the ship jumped into hyperspace once again. The hunt for the lost human legacy, and the fight to stop the Nexus, had only just begun. The data Rixa and his team had uncovered led them to an isolated star system on the far edges of the galaxy. It was one of the last known human outposts, a place hidden from the eyes of the galactic community for centuries. If there were any surviving humans, or even remnants of their technology, this would be the place to find them. And with the growing evidence of the Nexus threat looming, Rixa knew time was running out. As the horizon's edge emerged from hyperspace, the star system came into view. The planet below was a bleak, barren world, its surface scarred by ancient battles. Massive craters and debris fields stretched across the landscape, remnants of a long-forgotten war. But unlike the ruins they had explored before, there were signs of life here. Faint, barely detectable energy signatures that suggested the presence of active technology. We're picking up power sources on the planet's surface, Jara said, her voice tinged with excitement as she examined the readings. It's weak, but it's there. Someone, or something, is still down there. Rixa stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the planet below. Prepare for landing. We need to see what's left. Kel nodded, already issuing commands to the crew. I'll ready the drop team. We should be prepared for anything. If the Nexus has already found this place, it might not be friendly. The shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, buffeted by turbulent winds and sandstorms. The surface below was a desolate wasteland, dotted with the wreckage of starships and the skeletons of long-dead cities. But amidst the destruction, they could see the faint outlines of structures still standing, their metal frames gleaming in the dim light. As the shuttle touched down near the largest of the structures, Rixa felt a sense of anticipation building in his chest. This was it, the last chance to find something, anything, that could help them fight the Nexus. If the humans had left behind anything valuable, it would be here. The team disembarked, weapons drawn and sensors scanning for signs of danger. The air was thick with dust, and the wind howled around them, but there was an unmistakable sense of activity beneath the surface. "We're near the source of the energy signature," Jara said, consulting her scanner. "It's coming from that building." Rixa led the way toward the structure, its towering form a stark contrast to the ruins surrounding it. The entrance was sealed, but with Jara's expertise, it didn't take long for them to hack into the control panel and force the doors open. Inside, the atmosphere was strangely different, cooler, and with a faint hum of machinery still operational. The team stepped into a large, dimly lit chamber filled with ancient consoles, screens, and data cores. The walls were lined with racks of long-abandoned weapons, many of which looked far more advanced than anything the Trellick had ever developed. "Looks like we just walked into an armory," Kel muttered, eyeing the racks of weapons with a mix of awe and unease. If the humans had this kind of firepower, how did they lose? "They were outnumbered," Rixa said, his voice grim. "No amount of technology can win a war if your enemy has an endless supply of soldiers." Jara moved quickly to one of the consoles, her fingers flying over the controls as she worked to access the system. "There's a massive database here," she said. "It's old, but still functional. If we can download this data, we might be able to find out what happened during the final days of the war and how the humans fought back." As she worked, a sudden noise echoed through the chamber. The team froze, their weapons raised as they scanned the room. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a tall, gaunt humanoid wearing tattered armor that bore the unmistakable markings of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Rix's heart skipped a beat. A human. After all these years, a living, breathing human stood before them. The figure approached slowly, their eyes wary but not hostile. As they stepped into the light, Rixa could see the signs of age and wear on their face, their expression hard but resolute. This person had seen things, survived horrors unimaginable to most. "Who are you?" the human asked, their voice hoarse and rough from disuse. "Why have you come here?" Rixa lowered his weapon, his voice steady but filled with respect. "We're from the Trellick Republic. We've been searching for survivors, for any trace of humanity. We need your help." The human's eyes narrowed, studying Rixa and his team with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. "Help? From us? Humanity is all but extinct. We know about the Nexus," Rixa said quickly, stepping forward. "We found your message on the other outpost. The Nexus destroyed your worlds, but they're still out there. And they're coming back. If we don't stop them, the rest of the galaxy will fall, just like Earth." At the mention of the Nexus, the human's expression darkened. "So they've returned," they muttered, almost to themselves. "I knew this day would come." Rixa nodded, his eyes locked on the humans. "We need to fight them, and we need your knowledge. You fought them once before. You know how they operate, how they think. Without you, we don't stand a chance." The human was silent for a long moment, their gaze distant as if recalling memories too painful to speak of. Finally, they exhaled slowly and nodded. "I'm Lieutenant Leora of the United Earth Defense Fleet, or at least what's left of it." She glanced around the chamber, her eyes filled with a mix of bitterness and determination. "I've been waiting for this, for someone to find us, to finish what we started." "How many of you are left?" Kel asked, stepping forward. Leora's gaze hardened. "Not many. Most of my people are either dead or in stasis, waiting for the right moment. We were preparing for a counterstrike against the Nexus when they overwhelmed us. But we have resources, weapons, technology the rest of the galaxy hasn't even dreamed of. It's hidden in outposts like this one, scattered across the stars. We need those weapons, Rixa said urgently. The Nexus is planning to strike again, and they won't stop until every world is ashes. With your help, we can stop them before it's too late. Leora studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Very well, but understand this isn't just your war now. The Nexus destroyed everything I ever loved, and I've been waiting centuries for a chance at revenge. If we're going to do this, we do it right. We hit them hard and fast, and we don't stop until they're gone for good. Rixa felt a surge of hope. We'll fight with you, Lieutenant, whatever it takes. Leora turned to the consoles, her fingers activating long-dormant systems. The chamber hummed to life, and the screens filled with data, maps, battle strategies, and the locations of other hidden human outposts. We'll need to rally every race we can, Leora said, her voice resolute. The Trellick, the Core, the Valka. They'll all have to join us if we're going to stand a chance. The Nexus doesn't leave survivors. This will be a war like none you've ever seen. We'll do what we can, Rixa replied, determination burning in his chest. The Trellick fleet is ready to move. We'll contact the other species and form an alliance. Leora nodded, her eyes flashing with the fire of old battles. Then let's not waste any time. The Nexus won't wait for us to gather our forces. We need to strike first, before they do. As the team prepared to leave, Rixa couldn't help but feel a strange sense of destiny. The galaxy was on the brink of annihilation, but for the first time, they had a fighting chance. With Leora's knowledge, the hidden human technology, and the combined might of the galaxy's races, they might just be able to stop the Nexus from finishing what they had started. As the shuttle lifted off from the planet, Rixa looked out at the stars, knowing that the real battle was just beginning. And this time, the galaxy would fight back, with the last survivors of humanity leading the charge.